So I'd like to call it to order the May 18th, 2023 Housing and Community Development Commission meeting. Next item on the agenda is to consider the meeting minutes of April 20th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay. This is a time for public comment of items not on the agenda. There's really nobody in the audience, so I don't think we have any. Next item, unsuccessful and delayed projects updates. So, for the project updates, the unsuccessful and delayed projects, there were 3 projects. Shelter house HVAC improvements, DVIP shelter construction, and free med clinic improvements. And so shelter house has requested postponement. They had some conflicts with staff, so we'll discuss them next meeting. And DVIP submitted a written report. So if anybody there, I don't think there's anybody here from DVIP that would like to comment. Free medical clinic is here. So if I could have you come up and talk about the,
You're welcome to sit there and, yeah, if you could just click that on. Thank you.
this is for the facility improvements, $75,000.
Right. So basically, the project has started. It started in the beginning of May, and it is almost complete. So so the reasons for the delay is originally we had a lot of trouble getting people who wanted to bid, both because they're busy and some people did not want to do Davis-Bacon. And then once we got the bid, we had the classic waiting for the supplies to come in. And then the supplies came in, and we decided to alter something on the one piece of the design, and so there was like a 3-week delay as we debated different canopy structures. But the supplies came in, and stump construction started, and within 3 days, the doors are installed. And so now we're waiting to paint the lines on the parking lot and finish the electricity and the finishes around the door and install the handicap arm. And and the canopy should arrive next week. And so we do anticipate that by June 15th, everything should be finished.
And could you just, for the public, just introduce yourself, please?
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Hi. I don't know where I'm looking. I'm Jenny Schmidt. I'm the new executive director of the Iowa City Free Medical Clinic.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Jenny? Thank you.
Okay, great.
Congratulations on your position.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Does anybody have any comments or concerns about the other 2, especially DVIP, since we'll have Shelter House next month?
Does staff, I read through it, does staff have any updates in terms of projections? They're still haven't spent, they're roughly spent about 50% as of writing this, is that
Are
correct?
you talking about DVIP?
DVIP.
Okay.
Yeah, they have some spending. We had some supply expenditures already, and then I know that there's a bid opening tomorrow that I'm attending, so it's moving forward.
Okay.
You need a little more time, Kyle.
All right, there it's on. I didn't understand the whole, they missed the deadline, but they ordered stuff, and just because the ordered stuff is on back order, it still seems like they're on time. That was the only thing I was somewhat confused about. It's a very final page of their little written report. They said that they were able to spend down 50%, but they missed the March 15th reimbursement deadline, but they had ordered the supplies prior to the 15th. So is it just an accrual versus cash kind of issue there where?
I think part of that may have been they ordered the supplies, and we usually wait until they've arrived to pay out an
Ah,
invoice.
okay.
So maybe that's what they're referencing.
But the staff have concerns that this isn't going to get done. I mean, they seem to still be on track.
No, it seems to be moving forward. It just didn't meet the March 15th
That-
deadline.
Just for the reambrsement of expenditures, is that right, or something?
Right,
like that?
so they're supposed to have 50% expended by the 15th, and that didn't happen. However, they had a large reimbursement already, and so the rest of the project's moving forward as well.
Other comments, concerns? Okay. Now we have updates. So, we did receive the written comments from DVIP. And I think Scott Hawes is here from Habitat for Humanity. So Scott, you want to come up and talk to us about your updates?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk a little bit about our work. So this is the first time that I've ever given an update, so if you guys have any specific questions or if I'm kind of going off on the wrong path, then certainly bring me back on. Make sure that I don't get off the rails here too bad. So we have 2 home awards that we're currently are planned to use before the end of the fiscal year. One of them is for 2408 Indigo Drive. That is a new build. That is a project with a variety of partners, including Homes for Iowa, a local developer, ECOG, and City of Iowa City, as well as Habitat, of course. We closed on that home in April 10th. It was a 8-person home, a 6-bedroom home for 8 people. They were at 49% of the area median income. Prior to buying the home from Habitat, they were living in a 3-bedroom home, and they had to keep a mattress off on a covered porch area and drag it into the living room so that the kids could sleep in the living room. So anyways, now they all have bedrooms. So that's what we certainly consider a really nice success story, something that Habitat is certainly proud of, and hopefully everybody that's associated with that is proud of as well. The second project that we will use our home award for is at 2413 Indigo Drive, right across the street. We plan to close on that home on June 15th. We have a purchase agreement. Financing is in the process of being secured, but there is pre-approval for it. And that will be for a 5-person household, a single mother with 4 children. They're at 41% of the area median income. This is, in my opinion, a really great success because we're pulling together resources from all over. Habitat for Humanity of Iowa, City of Iowa City, Housing Authority, she's on Section 8 or Housing Choice Voucher. And so to be able to sell a brand new home to somebody who's at 41% of the area median income, it certainly doesn't happen very often. And so this is another thing that we're really proud of. And yeah, we think that this will be a nice success story that hopefully the entire community can be proud of.
You said one was 2413. What was the address of the other one?
2408 Indigo.
Okay, only because I'm going to drive by.
Yeah.
Where is Indigo Drive?
It is on the southeast side of Iowa City. So if you're headed down Highway 6, let's say you're going west on Highway 6, take a left onto, I want to call it Lakeside Drive, and then follow that around to Whispering Prairie, and then kind of wind around, and it's back there. Yeah. 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 You should drive by. It's a nice little neighborhood, and there's a nice little wildlife or wetland in the back, and so the frogs make noise all day, which I find endearing, but could maybe drive some people crazy. Yeah.
Well, thanks. So, I have a question off the subject. I was so sorry to hear about the tornado and that you lost your storage building. That's right. So how's that going?
Boy, has that been awful. So Like, do you want the good or the bad? The good is the community really rallied behind us, and it was after 7 days, basically, we had all the cleanup completed because of all the support that we got from the community. And now we get the long process of rebuilding. So we're working on having our claim settled. Once our claim is settled, we'll know what our budget for the new warehouse will be, and then we can start the process of rebuilding. But that warehouse was a lot more to us than just a storage space. We hosted volunteers there, and we were able to keep projects moving even in bad weather because we did have access to that space. So it was a pretty big blow for us. That's the bad, but the good news is, a lot of support from the community.
Good, good, glad to hear.
Yeah,
Also good.
and we had the insurance premiums paid up. Yeah.
Any more
And
comments?
do you guys have any questions?
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. You guys have a nice evening.
All right, thanks, Scott.
And these project updates are just updates. I mean, they're not, these aren't projects that are on any kind of timeline or deadline at this point, right? Okay.
Unfortunately, Simon from the Housing Fellowship was going to attend tonight and present his slides, but he was not feeling well, so.
Okay. So we got the
Have all the
slides.
slides.
So Inside Out and Entry sent in a report. They did buy their house, so, and they are in the process of rehabbing it. Is that project, are they required to do Davis-Bacon?
That project we funded with home funds, and it was acquisition only. They decided to do that later, so
Yeah,
there's 4 home-funded units in it, and they want to add 2 more.
okay. Anybody have concerns about Inside Out, or they moving along? That's good, they bought that house. It's a nice neighborhood, too. Close in with good transportation, I think, services.
They had some nice press on buying the house, so that was
They
good.
what?
They had some press on buying the house. That was nice to see that, too. So that's where I first read about it, actually.
And then the Housing Fellowship sent us all a slides. So they have acquired several properties, right? And they received Choto operations. Any comments or questions about the Housing Fellowship's report? Okay. Next item on the agenda is to review and consider recommendations to City Council on approval of substantial amendments to the city's FY23 Annual Action Plan.
All right, so this proposed amendment is basically a funding swap of CDBG set-aside funding that will allow us to do a neighborhood improvement project this construction season. The city sets aside $75,000 in CDBG funds for neighborhood improvements each year in our action plan, and then we work with Parks or Engineering to determine projects. We've done several things at Weatherby and various parks that are in low-income areas throughout the city. The proposed project is a curb ramp accessibility improvement in the South District near Twain Elementary. The map shows kind of the general area of where the curb ramps are. We're proposing to replace 10 intersections to ADA standards. Some of these are intersections that were identified for repair by residents, so basically we got a complaint about it. And then the Public Works team went and kind of reviewed the area to find similar conditions, so they determined there was 10 that needed to be replaced. So some spots, the crossings don't exist, where there might be like a northwest crossing, but not an east-west crossing. And then in other spots, there are ramps already, but the slope is not compliant with ADA. They're too steep, or they're missing detectable warnings, which I think means that there's the bumps aren't there. Total cost of the project is $150,000. It was initially intended to cover 2 years of funding for FY23 and FY24. We have the opportunity to start the project this construction season. However, only half of the funds are available now. If we wait for approval for FY24 funds, we just have to wait till next construction season. So we'd like to, what we're proposing to do is add program income funds to the project. Those are funds that are repaid for loans or returned for whatever reason that go back into the funding pool. And then we also want to use unused economic development funds to fund this project. We have a $50,000 economic development set aside each year. We're currently using those economic development funds for small business technical assistance. It's just kind of an open application for people to apply, so we have unused funds right now, and we will have more funds available on July 1st, so there won't be a huge time frame where we don't have any funds available. So the reason we'd like to do this project now and not wait, our timeliness for CDBG is in May. That doesn't work well with our construction season, so anything we can get done the year before is helpful for us to meet our timeliness deadlines with HUD. Also, it'll get the curb ramps quicker in the neighborhood to meet the neighborhood resident need. This change is considered a substantial amendment to our action plan, which is why we're here today. Any major changes that we make to funding are considered substantial amendments. So we follow our citizen participation plan, we come to HCDC, we have a public comment period, and then we'll get it approved by council as well. So we're looking for a recommendation to swap the funds, get the project going. If we needed to supplement economic development in the future, we could always do that, but I don't see it being an issue right now.
So if I understand correctly, for it to be considered a substantial amendment, it's at least 150,000?
So what makes it a substantial amendment is we're changing the project from 75,000, we're doubling the amount. So there's a 25% threshold?
Yeah, it's like 25% of the project budget or $50,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're exceeding that, which makes it, we need to get approval.
Thank you.
My question is just more in how you choose projects. I mean, do you kind of have a larger list and then you choose based on complaints, and that's fine, I mean, because that's input, citizen input. I'm wondering how you choose the projects that you are, proposing to us.
Sure, so we rely mostly on our other departments to let us know what's needed. It can't be anything in the city's capital improvement plan because that's not allowed with CDBG. So if it's already planned to do in our 5-year CIP, we can't fund it with CDBG because that's already funded with city money. So these are kind of more one-off projects that aren't planned for, that maybe a need arose and we can fund it with CDBG, and then they have to be located in a low-income area of Iowa City. Okay. So a lot of what we do is playground improvements, shelter, trails, stuff like that.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
How familiar are you with the project?
It's handled mostly by engineering, so not super.
Okay. I just was curious, you're talking about curb cuts. I mean, the big issue there, of course, has always been all those Mark Twain kids that live south of 6. It's a nightmare for them to get across. And there's nothing from Taylor across. You actually have to go, you can't even go along, you have to go behind, there's an apartment building behind Casey's, which is it's not even Hollywood Boulevard, it's off Tracy Lane there, and it's, I know it is Hollywood. It goes back behind this apartment building and then connects at Casey's at Broadway, and then they can cross. But what sucks, the reason I ask is because I see the triangle over here. If you go up Sycamore Street and you're trying to get to Mark Twain, so if you're in any of that side, the east side, so you're going up Sycamore Street, you have to cross Sycamore, then you have to cross the highway, then you have to go all the way up to the next intersection, then cross back across Sycamore to get to Mark Twain. And I was just curious, so I was curious what curb cut intersection ads they were doing here. I mean, are they primarily doing it as far as the feeders in the neighborhood on those individual smaller sidewalks to get to the current connections, or they're not adding new connections across?
No, these are just
Highway
the
6?
corner ramps.
Right, yeah, the curb cut corners, yeah, okay. I knew at one time there had been bigger discussions, and that maybe that's a city plan issue, where I know they had talked about putting some other connection across.
Like a catwalk or
directly across
something?
something, but as always, I mean, anytime you get into pedestrian bridges, and it's a whole different level of expense. So I just was curious if you knew what all they were doing, but.
I don't know, but I can pass
But
that
it sounds like
feedback
mostly
along.
just making the changes necessary within those little neighborhood sidewalks so that people can get
Those are
across
accessible,
those
yeah.
connections. Okay, cool.
Yeah, this is specifically for curb cuts.
For curb ramps. Yeah.
Right,
People
right.
with
Yeah.
wheelchairs and
Yeah.
walkers and motor scooters.
Yeah. Any other comments before I ask for a motion? Can I have a motion to consider approval?
I motion.
Second? Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I mean, I guess I could ask,
Okay.
just real quick, I mean, does staff have any hesitation or, I mean, I guess we didn't straight out say, I mean, is staff's recommendation for this proposed amendment to be approved? I mean,
Yeah,
what
we're-
would be the downside here?
We're bringing it forward to get approved. I don't see, we don't anticipate a negative outcome of this.
That's what I was wondering.
It will help us out because we'll be spending money quicker. It'll be getting out into the community faster.
I
so.
just didn't know if there was any comments, like if there's some magic whiteboard, someone's like, oh, well, I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
then, I think, isn't, not with this specific amount of money, but isn't it in the capital improvements plan to, I mean, the goal would be to have all of the curb ramps, or whatever you call them, the cuts for crossing, be ADA compliant. I mean, that's one of the goals I think the city's been working on for several years. So,
I just figured we should at least ask if you guys had any weird.
I think that's
No.
great. I think that's a good idea.
This is really,
courteous.
it will help us get the project done quickly within the rules that we're given. So that's what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Okay, all those in favor of recommending the substantial amendment to the city's FY23 actual plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay. Staff and commission updates. Becky, do you have an update on the subcommittee?
Sure. So we met once and May 1, and we have another meeting scheduled for Monday.
Excuse me for a minute. This is the committee to determine the process for aid to agencies, right?
Right, we're looking at, we have 6 initiatives, is what I'm calling them, for lack of a better term, that we're looking at under this. So the first one, and the way these initiatives came up by input during the first meeting, based on agencies or staff or commission members' experience or desire, whatever they wanted to look at. So the 6 are, and I've put them in order. That's one of the things I worked on is how I think we should tackle this. Is first one is a review process, the HCDC process for allocating the funds. This came up from staff. Is it in the right area? Should this be a commission process, or should it be handled by somebody else? And so we'll dig a little bit further into that on Monday and see where staff, what some of their thoughts are. The second one is an application revision. So not just looking at the application itself, but also the funding platform. And I did contact the subcommittee, asked that we discuss this with United Way. So I contacted the United Way director, and they're going to have a couple of people attend the committee meetings. And on Monday, we'll also be discussing the funding platform. United Way may be willing, is probably willing or whatever, to discuss a new platform for the funding. So, which would hopefully take care of some of the problems with getting the information inputted and things like that. The third thing is taking a look at funding priorities and performance assessments. So this would mean we'd look at city steps as kind of the basis for prioritizing the kinds of activities that the city wants to fund, and then also including looking at those labels that we've given, the legacy and emerging agency labels. Funding the allocation principles, so to speak, and I just have dubbed this as the rules and policies of the funding process, like the rules of minimum amounts, percentage of budget, look at historical allocations and how they have a role in the current funding process. And that also could be looked at in number 3 in terms of the funding priorities also. Fifth one is rubric and scoring. That doesn't really need any further explanation. And the 6th one is commission and community education on nonprofit impact, is how do we kind of promote and showcase, what it is that the agencies are doing on an annual basis with the CDBG and the city funding. So that's what we've got.
Other commissioners, updates?
I have a question. If staff have informed, if you have any update on UAY, because the funding was approved, correct, at the city council meeting?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
is UAY going to proceed with the funding?
We haven't spoken with them, but I do know that they received Housing Trust Fund funding that was contingent on our funding. So I think we'll connect with them at some point. But the next step is for them to what we recommended to council was that to keep HCDC's recommendation, but we gave them a deadline, I believe, of March 15th to identify a property. And at that time, we kind of review whether we wanted to, if they hadn't spent the funding at that point or were on their way, we could review. So we set a checkpoint with that.
Okay.
And that sort of aligns with we don't typically take home through the unsuccessful and delayed projects policy, but we use the same timeline. So if we wanted to recapture funds at that point, it would go into the next funding round to be respent.
Great.
So they were approved by council, and we
Yep.
went with the HCDC recommendation.
Thanks. I've just been curious about that.
Staff updates?
Just a couple quick ones. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again just in case. Terms that are ending in June would be Kieran, Kyle, and Nasser. So if you want to reapply, please do. The deadline's May 30th. The other thing I have on here that maybe you want to touch on would be the CWJ from the
I
council
did
meeting.
put mine in a couple weeks ago.
You did? Okay. It goes to the city clerk's office, so I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
So we took our action plan and agency recommendations to council, or I think earlier this month. Council took the recommendation and also added $15,000 for Center for Worker Justice in addition to what was recommended. So as staff will find another $15,000 in the budget for that. So that's what they received. My other update is that we have to do a substantial amendment to our home ARP allocation plan due to some changes at HUD. So we are working on that. We'll have to bring that back through the commission to get approval similar to the one we did tonight. It's really just kind of revising our narrative to make sure we're meeting the rules of the home ARP program, which is brand new and we've never done before. So they wanted us to add some things. We don't really know the timeline. So if we're ready in June, we may try to hold a June meeting to get that done. But we don't know at this point.
How much did the city receive?
About 1.8 million. And so our plan issues are delaying projects, which is frustrating for people, but we're trying to get that approved as soon as we can. So if we are ready, we'll want to hold a meeting. We want to wait a couple months because it's holding up projects.
So typically don't meet in June?
We don't have anything else for the June agenda. We usually have a summer break, so I don't know. We don't have it fluctuates.
So we are not planning on meeting in June?
We will meet if we have the home art plan ready to get approved.
How does that work with,
If they don't re-up me?
how does that work with the subcommittee and what we're doing there and needing to bring information back?
I didn't address that. We did talk about staff want us to have this done by December of this year, so we have a date of getting it done by November. So we're just going to keep meeting regardless of the commission. All of what we're doing is we're recommending changes
Right.
to the commission.
Right.
Commission will sift through them, decide what we want to take as a commission and recommend it to city council. So.
I just didn't know if the commission wanted to be updated before 3 months from now.
Well, I mean, I guess we could do that. If we can give
It was
them-
just a question,
Yeah.
not a suggestion, just.
I don't know if anybody wants that or not, so.
We can always send things out via email too if there's something
Sure.
pressing before the next meeting. And I'll get a schedule together for the next calendar year of meetings soon too.
I did just have one last thing, and if this is my last meeting, or if it's the next one, or they invite me back in the fall. I know we talked about this when I came on early on, which is under our HCDC description, part of the duties are to recommend to the city council from time to time amendments, supplements, changes, and modifications to the Iowa City Housing Code. And it's one of the main reasons I originally joined, was to be part of that process, to be part of that discussion. And we've never, in the whole time I've been here, ever had any of that show up in front of us, even when changes were made. And I know I asked, I know I didn't ask, I mentioned at one time, I would love at some point to see if, either the housing, the housing inspection division director, Stan Lauberman, or I think that's under building inspection, isn't it, overall? I can't remember what her name is that runs that, but it'd be nice to have them come in and talk about the changes that have been made and why those changes were made. And also, I would love to hear their recommendations for how they think housing code and housing inspections can, what are their ideas? What are their also recommendations that maybe aren't getting out there, or aren't getting from this committee to council? I don't know. It's frustrating that in all the time I've been here, we've never once had anybody ever come to us about anything housing code related, even though it's supposed to be part of our mission.
I understand with wanting to stay true to what our mission is and what our responsibilities are as they were outlined by the council and included on the webpage. There are a couple other little items as well, and I've often wondered about that and how that comes into play.
And I don't know. I mean,
don't either.
I just don't even know the last time a housing code item, I mean, it was before me. I don't know.
We can
So how,
ask that at some point. That happened.
We can certainly have staff come to the meeting. Stan and Danielle are in our department. We work with them every day. If there's something specific that you want them, or even something broad that you want them to come in and go over, that can certainly get that on the agenda.
They, especially Stan and obviously and Tyler and Seth, and everybody in his department and Sue, they are seeing and addressing issues every day that we don't see, and when he was sitting here talking about there being 8 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment, we deal with that. We deal with 2-bedroom apartments where we walk in, and it's one of those, we have to sometimes tell tenants, the city inspection is in 2 weeks. These mattresses can't be in the living room,
Yeah.
right? Because
Well, let's
so I just love to have some input from them on, are there changes they can envision to our housing code that would allow some of these density issues for low, median income families who are trying to have, or not even trying, but are having to live 6 or 7 to a 2-bedroom. Or I'd just be curious to see if there's, solutions out there that we just haven't thought of.
I think that sounds great. It might be helpful if, we request that, but then if we could give the department some indication of exactly what they're supposed to come and.
Yeah, I know, and that's what's tough, because I don't know that I have anything specific.
Well, we
but-
can think about, I think that's great, because often for rental housing inspection anyway, the rules change, how often they are, and there's a difference between housing choice voucher, HQS inspections,
yeah.
than, those that aren't receiving any kind of federal assistance. So, that's something that I think the commissioners could get some value from. So, but I think it would be very helpful, again, to say to the department, I mean, don't give them, just come in and talk to us. We need, these are the things that we would like to have more information about.
I mean, even things like, I know, for example, I'd be curious to see what their thoughts are on how many numbers they're seeing. We do have older homes that are becoming low median income homes, right? Homes that may have been college homes at one time, student homes, and they're becoming, instead of A, B properties, they're becoming C, D properties, but we're running into some of them, which is lead-based paint. They're pre-78.
Oh, sure.
And I have landlords and owners and clients of mine that don't have the money to do mitigation. So I have to ask, like, what is the age of your dependents? Because if we, I mean, I can't sign a lease. I won't even let them apply because I know it's not going to pass.
Right.
It would be curious to see how many. I'd like to know, like, what are they seeing as real life issues that are in that FQHC inspections or just standard inspections that are affecting people being able to get into homes.
There's your agenda item. I think what he just said would be good to have Stan come and talk
Yeah,
about
that's a good
that.
idea.
Along that same line, we had, I don't know if, was it this year or was it last year, we had a request to look at the vacation policy for,
The Housing Authority.
yeah. And
For international, for the.
I'd kind of like an update on how that's going. I don't know about you all, but I got some flack from some people in the community that thought that I had voted wrong. I voted in favor of changing the policy, but I'd kind of like to hear, what its use is, if it's being used minimally, as was going to be my guesstimate. I'd just like to know a little bit about, I guess, the impact of some of the decisions that we make like that. I think it would be helpful.
And in addition to that, I know one of the things we did at the end of the year was, I guess it was plans, but Housing Authorities was more of a report that we had to approve and then submit to council for their approval to be included in, what was the greater document that all that was being included in? I can't think of it right
We have
now.
an annual report.
Yeah, annual report. There you go. I just think it would be interesting and probably informative for this commission to really understand from the Housing Authority, how many people are still on the waiting list, waiting to be approved for a housing choice voucher so that they can try to afford some housing. How many people are they working with?
That was a great presentation by Steve Rackus when we were over at that East Side Recycling. Do you remember that? He came and gave like really in-depth numbers on the vouchers and waiting lists. And I know there's a new person.
Yeah, Rachel, yeah. I think it would be really good for this commission to be able to hear some of those things, and so it helps bring some context to us when we're making some decisions.
Yeah, so we can have Rachel come as well, maybe in the same meeting as Stan. But so yes, Rachel's our new director of the Housing Authority. She's been here over 6 months. We are also looking at our full admin plan. So that travel policy was part of our admin plan with the Housing Authority. We are doing a full kind of overhaul of the admin plan, updating, making sure it's matching, our goals at the city, kind of moving towards housing first a little more than we have been. And I believe that will come to the commission, but I'll talk to Stan and Rachel about setting up a future agenda time to meet.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Anything else?
Oh, wait.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.